Hey everyone, we are having a conversation about money and how we live. How do we take inventory of all of this? We're going to be having that conversation right now. As soon as you're done counting. Anytime. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We're in a conversation about money, which is usually something that we would say is none of your business, right? Yes. We're kind of raised that way to not ask questions about money. We're told that we shouldn't actually inquire about how much a house costs. You don't ask about clothes. You don't ask about money with other people, but yet it's something that we read a lot about in Scripture, all over the place, especially in the New Testament, as you pointed out.
Isn't it incredible that one of the things that we as pastors don't like to talk about in church, because right away it puts people uneasy, it sets them back.
It's like a stigma around it.
It is. Yeah. And the shameful part of it, I feel, as pastors is we're ignoring one of the most talked about topics in the Bible. Far more than most any other topic, money is talked about by Jesus, by some of the most amazing followers of Jesus. And so why shouldn't we address one of the most controversial topics, but also one of the most important topics in our society today? In fact, when we look at our lives, and this week we were talking about how should we approach our finances? How should we approach life? Do we have this in the right manner? I'm harking back to a scripture in Luke chapter 12, verse 15. I want to read it to you. It says, "Then he said to them, 'Watch out, be on guard against all kinds of greed.'" Now, hone in on this. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. And when you really look at that, basically what the writer is saying is, hey, life is not about your resources. And so when you step back and when you look at it, our lives always consist of resources. As a provider for my family, I always think about I have to go get a job to be able to provide income, to be able to take those resources, to be able to purchase things, to be able to make sure that everybody in my family is successful, has the best future. And so everything, our jobs, our cars, everything surrounds resources. And the writer is basically saying, hey, that's not what life consists about. And so when you think about that, well, then why is he warning us about these
that
things?
Watch out really stands out there, right? Because we would have a natural tendency to worry about it, right?
Well, and you say it, a natural tendency, because, when I think about this, resources, the danger for them is they have the tendency to grab our attention. And they pull our attention. So when we think about that, if we begin to focus on our resources, what are the dangers of that? And some of those dangers are very simply our relationships. How many of us, we say all the time, I got to put the phone down. I don't need to answer that call during dinner. We're so focused on our position at work, our job, that we get so caught up in it that the most important aspect of an evening sitting around the table at dinner should be about building our relationships with our family members, as opposed to getting that one last email checked off the list. And so it's almost like the writer is saying, hey, be on guard because your relationships are going to suffer. Not only our relationships with our family, but then you think about our relationships with our Father. That we begin to all of a sudden, it pulls us away from our relationship with God, which then kind of distracts us from the real purpose of how we're supposed to live our life.
Yeah, so in a way, our resources are so intertwined with everything else that we actually ignore everything else because we're so focused on that.
Exactly.
That's really interesting that you bring that up. And then as it comes to our relationship with God, that's interesting as well because it all comes from Him anyway, but we start maybe thinking that we're in control of it somehow, right?
Well, isn't that the way that the enemy works at times? He likes to kind of distract us from the truth. And so if we read and if we learn that, okay, life does not consist of resources, all right, our focus shouldn't be on that. Well, then where should our focus be? Well, then we're reminded of the fact that our resources don't come from us. Our sense of purpose. As a provider, I get a really sense of pleasure of just providing for my family and just making sure that, oh, look, I got a raise. Look, I got a new job. I. And the truth is, it's not about I. In fact, I want to read this to you. This comes from Luke 12:32, and it gives us insight into where do our resources and everything good comes from. It says this, "Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom." And when you think of the kingdom, what are we talking about? It's everything.
Yeah.
That everything that we have, our homes, our kids, everything comes from God. And so it's like, hey, don't worry about everything because everything comes from Him. And so, Aaron, could you imagine if we begin to live our life not focused on our resources, but trusting that, you know what? Our Father's giving us everything.
Well, the word that stands out to me in that is that he's pleased to. So it's not just that he's not withholding it, He's like, no, I am happy to do that for you.
And when you receive that, then it allows us not to be distracted by those. Then what do? And I want to end with this. It's as if God says, Terry, your purpose in life is as you don't have to worry about resources. So I'm going to pour those into you. So you don't have to worry about pulling things in. Instead, in your life, you are to be an outflow of me because I'm going to take care of everything. I'm going to give you everything. And so as you trust me with that, then I will bless you in abundance so that you can be an outpouring of everything that I have, and you could begin to outpour over your neighborhoods, over your family, to be a blessing to others. That's the real purpose. So now, when you think about it, if all we're doing is focused on input, on pulling in, I've got to be responsible, I got to get that job,
right.
I've got to do, then you are not outpouring to anybody, to your family, to your relationship with God. You're missing the purpose of life. So it's time to begin living life the way God intended, not worried about or focused on our resources, but really worried about completing our purpose and allowing God to work in and through us.
Right. So that's an excellent challenge and an excellent way to kick off this conversation over the next few weeks about money, about finances. And it really starts by just looking at what you already have and remembering who it comes from and building your relationship with each other and with Jesus as you walk down this road. So we're really excited about this series. I'm glad that we're talking about it, something that Jesus talked a lot about, and we're going to have this conversation all month long.